Hello class, today we're going to be reading chapters 24 and 25 of The Chocolate War. You're in trouble, Brother Leon said. You're in trouble, not me, Archie wanted to answer, but didn't. He'd never spoken to Leon on the telephone before, and the disembodied voice at the other end of the line had caught him off balance. What's the matter? Archie asked cautiously, but knowing, of course. The chocolates, Leon said. They're not selling. The entire sale is in jeopardy. Leon's breath filled in the gaps between the words as if he'd been running a long distance. Was he on the edge of panic? How bad is it? Archie asked, relaxing now, stalling. He knew how bad it was. It could hardly be worse. The sale's more than half finished. The initial push is over. There's no momentum. Half the chocolates haven't been sold yet, and the sales are virtually at a standstill. Leon paused in the recital. You're not being very effective, Archie. Archie shook his head in grudging admiration. Here was Leon with his back to the wall, and still he was on the offensive. You're not being very effective, Archie. You mean the finances are bad? Archie taunted, launching his own offensive. To Leon, it may have sounded like a shot in the dark, but it wasn't. The question was based on information Archie had received that afternoon from Brian Cochran. Cochran had stopped him in the second-floor corridor and motioned Archie into an empty classroom. Archie had been reluctant. The kid was Leon's bookkeeper and probably his stooge, but the information revealed that Cochran was no stooge for Leon. Listen, I think Leon's in deep trouble. There's more than chocolates involved here, Archie. Archie resented Cochran's familiarity, the use of his name, but he didn't say anything, curious about what the kid had to say. I overheard Leon talking with Brother Jacques. Jacques was trying to back him into a corner. He kept mentioning something about Leon abusing his power of attorney, that he'd overextended the school's finances. That was his exact word, overextended. The chocolates came into it. Something about 20,000 boxes and Leon paying cash in advance. I didn't hear all of it. I got out of there before they could find out I was around. So what do you think, Cochran? Archie asked, although he knew. Leon needed at least $20,000 to draw even with the school. I think Leon bought the chocolates with money that he wasn't supposed to use. Now the sale's going lousy and he's caught in the middle. And Brother Jacques smells a rat. Jacques is sharp, Archie said, remembering how Jacques had acted on Archie's anonymous tip about the word environment, making the class look ridiculous. Obie among them. Good job, Cochran. Cochran beamed at the praise. Encouraged, he drew some sheets of paper out of a book he was carrying. Take a look at this stuff sometime, Archie. It's facts and figures about this year's sale, and last year's. And it's all bad. I think Leon's on the run. But Cochran really didn't know Leon, Archie realized now as the teacher's voice came vibrantly over the line. Leon had ignored Archie's taunt about finances and had resumed his offensive. I thought you had influence, Archie. You and your friends. It's not my sale, Brother Leon. It's your sale in more ways than you realize, Archie, Leon said, sighing. It was his phony sigh, his usual act. You played games at the beginning, Archie, with that freshman Renault, and got yourself involved. Now the game is backfired. Renault. Archie thought of the kid's refusal to sell, his ridiculous defiance. He remembered the triumph in Obie's voice when he told him of Renault's action. It's your move, Archie, baby. But it was always Archie's move anyway. And he moved now. Just a minute, he told Brother Leon. He put down the phone and went to the den where he removed Cochran's data from his U.S. history textbook. Returning to the phone, he said, I've got some figures here about last year's sale. Do you know they barely sold all the chocolates last year? Kids are getting tired of selling stuff. Last year it took a lot of prizes and bonuses to get the kids to sell only 25 boxes at $1 a box. And this year, they're stuck with 50 boxes at $2 each. That's why the sale is falling apart, not because of games being played. Brother Leon's breathing filled the line as if he were some kind of obscene phone caller. Archie, he said, whispering, menace in the whisper, as if the information he had to impart was too terrible to be spoken aloud. I don't care about fun and games. I don't care whether it's Renault or your precious organization or the state of the economy. All I know is that the chocolates aren't being sold, and I want them sold. Any ideas about how? Archie said, fighting for time again. Funny, he knew Leon was in a precarious position, and yet there was always a danger of underestimating him. He still had the authority of the school behind him. Archie had only his wits and a bunch of guys who were all big zeros without him. Perhaps you should begin with Renault, Leon said. I think he should be made to say yes instead of no. I'm convinced, Archie, that he's become a symbol to those who would like to see the sale defeated. The malingerers, the malcontents, they always rally around a rebel. Renault must sell the chocolates. And you, the Vigils, yes, I'm saying the name aloud, the Vigils must throw their full weight behind the sale. It's quite in order, brother. You've spoken the correct word, Archie. Order. It is in order. I don't know what you mean, brother. I'll make it clear, Archie. If the sale goes down the drain, you and the Vigils also go down the drain. Believe me. Archie was about to respond, tempted to let Leon know that he had learned about the financial trouble, but he didn't get the chance. Leon, that bastard, had already hung up, and the dial tone exploded in Archie's ear. Chapter 25. The summons looked like a ransom note letters cut out of a newspaper or magazine. Vigil meeting, 2:30. The wackiness of the note, those crazy letters, made it seem childish and ridiculous. But that same touch of the childish also gave it an air of something not quite rational, faintly threatening and mocking. That was the special quality of the Vigils, of course, and Archie Costello. 30 minutes later, Jerry stood before the Vigils in the storage room. The nearby gym was occupied by fellows either practicing basketball or boxing calisthenics, and the walls echoed with thuddings, bouncings, and whistles blowing like a grotesque soundtrack. 9 or 10 Vigil members were present, including Carter, who was getting tired of his Vigil crap, especially when it meant he had to miss boxing, and Obi, who looked forward to the meetings with pleasure, wondering how Archie would proceed. Archie sat behind the card table. The table was covered with a scarf of purple and gold, the school colors. In the exact center of the table, a box of chocolates. Renault, Archie said softly. Instinctively, Jerry came to attention, squaring his shoulders and sucking in his stomach, and immediately disgusted with himself. Have a chocolate, Renault? Jerry shook his head, sighing. He thought wistfully of the guys out on the football field and the sweet fresh wind tossing the ball around before practice began. They're good, Archie said, opening the box and taking out a chocolate. He inhaled its flavor and popped it into his mouth. He chewed slowly, deliberately, smacking his lips in exaggerated fashion. A second chocolate followed the first, and a third followed the second. His mouth was crammed with this candy now, and his throat rippled as he swallowed. Delicious, he said, and only $2 a box. A bargain. Somebody laughed, a short bark that was instantly cut off, as if a needle had been lifted from a record. But you wouldn't know about the price, would you, Renault? Jerry shrugged, but his heart began to beat wildly. He knew there had to be a showdown, and this was it. Archie reached for another chocolate, into his mouth. How many boxes have you sold, Renault? None. None? Archie's gentle voice curled in surprise and wonder. He swallowed, shaking his head in mock puzzlement. Without taking his eyes from Jerry, he called, Hey, Porter, how many boxes have you sold? 21. 21. Archie's voice was now filled with awe. Hey, Porter, you must be one of those hustling, eager beaver freshmen, huh? I'm a senior. A senior? More awe. You mean to tell me you're a big-shot senior and you still got enough spirit left to get out there and sell all those chocolates? Beautiful, Porter. The voice full of mockery, or was it? Anybody else here sell chocolates? The chorus of numbers filled the air as if the Vigil members were calling bids at a weird auction. 42, 33, 20, 19, 45. Archie raised his hands and silence fell. Someone in the gym fell against the wall and shouted in an obscenity. Obi marveled at the way Archie ran the meetings and how the Vigils quickly took his cues. Porter hadn't sold 10 boxes, if any at all. Obi himself had only sold 16, but he had called out 45. And you, Renault, a freshman, a new student who should be filled with the spirit of Trinity, you haven't sold any? 0? Nothing? His hand reached for another chocolate. Actually, he loved them. Not as good as Hershey's with almonds, but an acceptable substitute. That's right, Jerry said, his voice small, a wrong end of the telephone kind of voice. Do you mind if I ask why? Jerry pondered the question. What should he do? Play a game? Tell it straight? But he wasn't sure if it would make sense if he told it straight, especially to a room full of strangers. It's personal, he said, finally feeling like a loser, knowing he couldn't win. It had all been going so beautifully. Football, school, a girl who had smiled at him on the bus stop. He had edged close to her and seen her name written on one of her books, Ellen Barrett. She had smiled at him 2 days in a row, and he'd been too shy to speak to her, but had looked up all the Barretts in the phone book, 5 of them. Tonight he was planning to call them up, track her down. It seemed to him that he'd be able to talk to her on the phone. Now, for some reason, he had the feeling he would never talk to her, never play football again. A crazy feeling, but one that he couldn't shake. Archie had been licking his fingers, one at a time, letting the echo of Jerry's response linger in the air. It was so quiet that he heard someone's stomach growl intimately. "Renault," Archie said, friendly, his voice conversational. "I'll tell you something. Nothing's personal here in the vigils. No secrets here. Understand?" He took a final suck at his thumb. "Hey, Johnson." "Right," a voice called behind Jerry. "How many times you jack off every day?" "Twice," Johnson replied quickly. "See?" asked Archie. "No secrets here, Renault. Nothing personal. Not in the vigils." Jerry had taken a shower this morning before school, but now he smelled his own perspiration. "Come on," Archie said, a good friend now, encouraging, coaxing. "You can tell us." Carter blew air out of his mouth in exasperation. He was losing patience with Archie's cat and mouse crap. He had sat here for 2 years watching Archie play his silly games with kids, having Archie act the big shot as if he ran the show. Carter carried the responsibility for the assignments on his shoulders. As president, he also had to keep the other guys in line, keep them psyched up, ready to help make Archie's assignments work. And Carter wasn't crazy about this chocolate stuff. It was something beyond the control of the vigils. It involved brother Leon, and he didn't trust Leon as far as he could throw him. Now he watched the kid Renault looking as if he was ready to faint with fright, his face pale and eyes wide with dread, and Archie having fun with him. Jesus. Carter hated this psychological crap. He loved boxing where everything was visible. The jabs, the hooks, the roundhouse swings, the glove in the stomach. "Okay, Renault, playtime is over," Archie said. The gentleness was gone from his voice. No chocolates in his mouth. "Tell us, why aren't you selling the chocolates?" "Because I don't want to," Jerry said, still stalling. "Because what else could he do?" "You don't want to?" Archie asked, incredulous. Jerry nodded. He'd bought time. "Hey, Obi." "Right," Obi answered, stung. Why the hell did Archie have to pick on him all the time? What the hell did he want now? "Do you want to come to school every day, Obi?" "Hell no," Obi responded, knowing what Archie wanted and giving it to him, but resentful as well, feeling like a stooge, as if Archie was the ventriloquist and Obi the dummy. "But you come to school, don't you?" "Hell yes." Laughter greeted the answer, and Obi allowed himself a smile, but a quick look from Archie wiped the smile away. Archie was dead serious. He could tell that by the way his lips were tight and thin and his eyes flashing like neon signs. "See," Archie said, swiveling back to Renault. "Everybody has to do things in this world they don't want to." A terrific sadness swept over Jerry, as if someone had died. The way he felt standing in the cemetery that day they buried his mother, and nothing you could do about it. "Okay, Renault," Archie said, a finality in his voice. You could feel the room tense. Obi sucked in his breath. "Here it comes, the Archie touch. Here's your assignment. Tomorrow, at the roll call, you take the chocolates. You say, 'Brother Leon, I accept the chocolates.'" Stunned, Jerry blurted out, "What? Something wrong with your hearing, Renault?" Turning aside, he called, "Hey, McGrath, did you hear me?" "Hell yes." "What did I say?" "You said the kids should start selling chocolates." Archie returned his attention to Jerry. "You're getting off easy, Renault. You've disobeyed the vigils. That calls for punishment. Although the vigils don't believe in violence, we have found it necessary to have a punishment code. The punishment is usually worse than the assignment. But we're letting you off cheap, Renault. We're just asking you to take the chocolates tomorrow and sell them." Jesus, Obi thought in disbelief. The great Archie Costello was running scared. The word asking was the tip-off. A slip of the lip, maybe. But as if Archie was trying to bargain with the kid, asking for crying out loud. "I've got you, Archie, you bastard." Obi had never known such sweet victory. The goddamn freshman was going to screw Archie up at last. Not the black box, not brother Leon, not his own cleverness, but a skinny freshman. Because Obi was certain of one thing, as if it was a natural law like gravity. Renault wasn't going to sell the chocolates. He could tell by looking at the kid, standing there scared, like he could shit his pants, but not backing down, while Archie was asking him to sell the chocolates. Asking! "Dismissed," Archie called out. Carter was surprised at the sudden dismissal. and he banged the gavel too hard, almost splitting the crate he used as a desk. He had a feeling that he had missed a beat somewhere, had missed a crucial moment. Archie and all his subtle crap. What the kid Renault needed was a stiff jab to the jaw and another to the belly. That'd make him sell the friggin' chocolates. Archie and his stupid, let's not have any violence. Anyway, the meeting was over and Carter felt like working out, like working up a sweat with the gloves in the big bag. He banged the gavel again.